going to cover checkpoint 6 here, how to create gradient spheres, but really it's just about how to use the gradient tool and the gradient panel together. This checkpoint, we're going to use the ellipse tool to create a large circle. We're going to apply a radial gradient to it with at least 4 colors in that gradient, and we're going to try and make it look three-dimensional as best we can. Then we're going to use the rectangle tool to fill the entire 13 by 19 inch artboard, and we're going to apply a linear gradient to it with at least 3 colors, and then finally use the same ellipse tool, but this time we're going to apply a free form gradient to the ellipse. And those are all 3 of the kinds of gradients that you have to use: radial, linear, and free form, which is new to 2021 Illustrator. So let's go ahead and open up Illustrator here. Here's the pig. Go ahead and get out of that. We're going to go to File, New. And over here is where we're going to create our artboard, right? We want it 13 inches. Make sure yours might say points, might say pixels. We want it to be in inches. So we want 13, and then the height to be 19 inches. Make sure these should be good RGB and 300 points per inch. We're going to hit create. And there's our artboard. So let's get our ellipse tool and create our first. Now, as you're using the ellipse tool, right, you want to create a perfect sphere. So how do you do that? Hold your shift button, right? And as you can see, it automatically will go to a perfect sphere. So there we go. Now we want to apply a gradient to this. Let's go ahead and fill it with a quick color. We're going to go to our window. We need to get out our gradient panel. All of your panels, anytime I say panel, those are all here in the window from the Windows option up here. Anything with a check mark next to it shows you what is already out on your working screen area, right? Here's the layers. So we want gradient right here. Here is our gradient. It's in black and white. Make sure you have the shape selected first. All right, I want to apply it to my circle. So make sure I use my selection tool to click on that shape that we're going to apply the gradient to. Come down here, and we're just going to quickly apply a color one to it. Here's the types of gradients that we have to choose from: linear, radial, and the freeform. We want to do a radial, so click on radial. And here, so this is just the panel, not the gradient tool yet, so I'll show you the panel. So all right, you can move the colors here. You can double click on one of these circles, choose a different color, and you can, if you don't want a certain color on there, just click and drag it off. And if you want a new one on there, you see how whenever not right here, but as it changes to a white arrow with the plus icon, that lets you know you can click there and add more circles and more colors. So let's go ahead, change some of these colors here. Okay, so that's pretty good. But now we want to try to adjust, right? We've just placed colors in a radial pattern on this circle, but we can adjust how the gradient is being applied over the shape. And in order to do that, we need to use our gradient tool. Not the gradient panel, but the tool over here in your toolbar. And it looks like this, like it would be a gradient. So we're going to click there. And as you can see, as soon as I click, here's where all of these colors are showing you how they're placed currently across this shape. And on both ends, we have a circle on one end. I can move it like so, adjust it that way by clicking on the circle. I can click on the square to enlarge, or make smaller. And I can also click on the colors themselves to move them around how I want them impacted. If I don't want them on it, I can just click and drag it off. I can click on these diamonds to adjust. Right now I'm adjusting this yellow By pushing it more to the orange, it's increasing the amount of the yellow, and by dragging it closer to the yellow, it's decreasing the amount of yellow while increasing the amount of orange. So I have control over the dispersion, so to speak. And you can tell a little bit easier here, right? From this orange into the purple. If I drag the diamond all the way to the orange, then it's not slowly blending into that purple. Right? The more I push it closer to the purple, the more the purple goes away. But it's essentially blending into that next color. That's what that diamond is doing. It's controlling how it blends into the next color. So do this, and you can also change the shape of the circle if you want. So mess around with this until kind of creates something looks like a three-dimensional sphere. So that's getting pretty good. Let's blend this a little bit more maybe, or a little bit less. So there we go. Pretty good three-dimensional sphere going on there. I think I'm going to turn off the stroke. Don't want to see the stroke. Okay, so there's the radial. Now real quick, what we're going to do is get our rectangle tool and apply it. Right now it has a radial. We want a linear, so I'm just going to click on linear. We don't want radial, we want a linear applied to it. Take off some of these. Okay, if this is ever happening, you're like, well, what's going on? I have linear selected, but it still is completely radial. Well, it's because right here, happens to the best of us, the one that's on top of the other is the one that's being applied to. So I'm applying this radial orange gradient to the stroke, not the fill. You can see behind it, the fill still has that radial gradient applied to it. So I need to click on. First off, I don't even want the stroke on, so I'm going to come over here to my tools panel, click that so it's undone, and then come back here to my panel, click on the fill, and now apply the linear gradient to it. Now every shape, whenever you're on a single layer, any new shape I create, Illustrator remembers the chronological order of the vectors and the shapes, etc. that you create, and they always go on top of each other in a stacking order. So I made this first, I made this second, so therefore this one's on top of that one, but I want it to be all the way behind. You can do that in one of two ways. I could just create a new layer and make sure that layer is below the circle layer that I made here, but if I want to just continue working on this same layer, just have the rectangle selected, right click on it, and go to arrange, and I want this one to be all the way in the back, so I'm going to hit send to back, and there it is all the way in the back now. So we'll click there and start changing our gradient around. So when I click on one, right, I can drag out a duplicate. I wanted another one of these, so I clicked on it, dragged it out. Or when you click on it, yeah, there we go. Click on it, drag it out. I'm going to apply it over here. Change my diamond a little bit. And that's fine. Got a linear gradient. Final one we're going to do is the freeform gradient. I'm just going to duplicate this real quick by holding my Alt option, dragging it down, and make sure I have the fill selected, and I'm going to apply instead freeform gradient. It's just the last one over here, and it starts with a single color on it. Double click that color and start applying. The first one applies it all the way over. Now I can click anywhere I want in here to continue adding sections of colors. So here's one still yellow. I can double click, change it to red, double click, I can click here. I can move this around. I can increase the circle by clicking on this part. Increase the size of it, decrease it. I think I'll double click here, maybe turn it into a purple color though. And let's click here and add a green. So you can create some really interesting colors and shapes and different things using this freeform gradient. And you can, you know, add them as much as you want across it. I think that looks pretty good. All right, so that is it for this checkpoint and how to use gradients and gradient panel and the gradient tool.